I was privileged to serve in the Department of Justice under 2 Republican and 1 Democratic president, and I am here because I believe that William Barr poses the greatest threat in my lifetime to our rule of law and to public trust in it. That is because he does not believe in its core principle, that no person is above the law. Instead, since taking office, he has worked to advance his lifelong conviction that the president should hold virtually autocratic powers. That includes immunity from nearly all checks and balances and being able to accord special treatment to himself and his friends. This conduct in particular gives cause for great concern about what Barr may do next. Just another 30 seconds. In closing, it needs to be said that Bill Barr does regularly lie in ways that impact official action. Along with his continuing media project to make Americans believe that the FBI conspired against Donald Trump, his statements about the Mueller report, Jeffrey Berman's supposed resignation, and Barr's own role in the events in Lafayette Park come quickly to mind. So does his practice of regularly shrouding himself in the rhetoric and trappings of the rule of law, even as he desecrates and undermines the institutions that make it possible. But to me, Barr's crowning dishonesty is the portrait of Edward Levy that a recent New York Times article showed hanging on the wall of his conference room, as though the current incumbent has
Regular order. The witness will conclude.
Regular order is right.
We're way beyond regular order.
The witness will continue.
Can I have one more sentence here?
By all means.
Okay. But to me, Barr's crowning dishonesty is the portrait of Edward Levy that a
Mr.
recent
Chairman, I would
New York
ask
Times
that the sergeant at arms be called upon to stop the disruption of this meeting. I can't hear this witness. This is a very important witness.
Yeah, well, he's way beyond
And the chair has
And if there are no rules about when people can talk, there's no rules about when you can make noise.
The gentleman makes a good point, and the chair will enforce the 5-minute rule. Witness will proceed.
The chair is not enforcing the 5-minute
The
rule.
witness will conclude.
Mr. Chairman, this is outrageous. Do you have no respect for the rules whatsoever?
The witness will conclude.
He's 2 minutes beyond concluding, and you don't let us have that kind of time. You gavel down immediately. You're being grossly unfair. This man had a written statement, and he knew to cut it to 5 minutes. He couldn't do it. Either we have rules or we don't.
The gentleman will suspend. The witness will conclude.
Thank you.
Well, then
In
we
closing,
can keep making
it needs
noise.
to be said that Bill Barr does regularly lie in ways that impact official action.
Mr. Chairman, there's not order in the room. There's a banging.
No,
That's
there's certainly not.
disrespectful.
Mr. Chairman, would you have Gene Krupa removed?
The witness will conclude.
That's what you said a while ago, and he didn't conclude.
The gentleman will suspend. The witness will conclude.
So I guess the last thing I want to sum up with, I've said all the rest of this, but the last point I'd like to make is that I think his crowning dishonesty in the face of what he is doing to the Justice Department is the picture that I saw in the New York Times a few weeks ago, a portrait of Edward Levy on the wall of his conference room, as though the current incumbent has anything but disdain for the beliefs and achievements of his predecessor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Just so we're clear about what just happened here, Republican lawmaker Louis Gohmert could not control himself over the fact that this witness, Donald Dyer, a former Deputy Attorney General of the United States, under a Republican president no less, went 2 minutes over his time, that Gohmert proceeded to bang on his desk until Democratic members called for the sergeant at arms to have him forcibly removed. In case you were wondering the extent to which Republicans are willing to debase themselves to run cover for Trump and his lackeys. Now, the reason that Republicans are so hell-bent on censoring Donald Dyer's words is because he was laying bare the damage that Attorney General Bill Barr is doing onto our democracy as he systematically tears down the post-Nixon reforms put in place to protect against this exact type of corruption. By the way, Ayer is no liberal Democrat. This isn't AOC up there. This is the U.S. Attorney under Ronald Reagan and the Deputy Attorney General under George H.W. Bush, which may explain why Republicans are trying to keep him quiet. And that is because when Democrats sound the alarms about Bill Barr's attacks on the rule of law, Republicans can just blame it on liberal hysteria. But having conservatives do so deprives them of that talking point, forcing them to literally bang on the table and drown out their words rather than risk letting them speak. This hearing comes on the heels of a slew of bombshell moves by Bill Barr. Only days ago, Barr moved to have the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jeffrey Berman, removed from his post and replaced with a guy named Jay Clayton, who has zero prosecutorial experience. Barr first claimed that Berman had agreed to resign, only for Berman to come out and say that he did no such thing, meaning that Barr lied. And then Barr claimed that Trump ordered the firing, only to have Trump come out and say this.
Well, that's all up to the Attorney General. Attorney General Barr is working on that. That's his department, not my department. But we have a very capable Attorney General, so that's really up to him. I'm not involved.
Meaning that Barr lied about that as well. Are you sensing a theme? And why attack the SDNY? Because the SDNY is the same office that prosecuted Michael Cohen. Cohen handled the hush money payouts for Trump's affairs. But if Cohen was successfully prosecuted by SDNY for making the payments, and he did it at the direction of Trump, then how do you argue that the person directing the illegal activity that Cohen himself was locked up for shouldn't also be in prison? So if that investigation is still ongoing, and if Michael Cohen is cooperating, then that bodes really poorly for Trump. The SDNY is also currently investigating Rudy Giuliani for his role in Trump's Ukraine extortion scheme. And so whatever the reason, you should probably consider that if Bill Barr and Trump are willing to risk major blowback for this decision, then whatever they were trying to hide by firing Berman must have been even worse than that blowback. Beyond the SDNY debacle, Justice Department prosecutor Aaron Zelinsky also testified that Bill Barr demanded he go easy on Roger Stone because of Stone's cozy personal relationship with Trump. Zelinsky and other prosecutors were further forced to pursue unjustified investigations of the marijuana industry and an anti-pollution pact between California and automakers, since they both became targets of attacks by Trump. In other words, DOJ prosecutors have admitted that Bill Barr has expressly overseen the politicization of the Justice Department. Now, clearly these revelations have resulted in a need to hear from the Attorney General. As of today, Barr's agreed to testify on July 28th, which, at least for now, ends the prospect of Democrats issuing a subpoena for his testimony. Now, that is not to say that he's not banking on us getting distracted in the 5 weeks' time he's waiting before he comes forward to speak, or that he won't balk once the date actually approaches, but as of now, we are set to hear from him. And lest there's any doubt, the issue of his destruction of the DOJ won't get muddled between now and July 28th. The fact is that Bill Barr does not work on behalf of the American people, he works for Donald Trump. He is the personal fixer for a man whose sole interest is his own re-election. Bill Barr shouldn't just testify, he shouldn't just be impeached, his name should go down in history for his utter disregard for the rule of law and helping a despot absolutely demolish the institutions put in place to safeguard our democracy. And at the very least, he should have to answer for that in full view of the American people. If you like that video, please check out my brand new podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I'll cover the most important political stories of the week and interview major players in the world of politics. Available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check it out and subscribe now.